Ai-jen Poo is the founder of New York-based Domestic Workers United and director of the National Domestic Workers Alliance, which is a network of over 35 local groups representing over 10,000 nannies, housekeepers, caregivers. She's also the co-founder of Caring Across Generations, which is a revolutionary new campaign that is going to transform the way we provide care in this country, addressing the aging crisis that we will all face, while creating 2 million new fully empowered and labor-protected jobs in home care with organizing rights and a path to citizenship. And I am going to be the last person to ever introduce Ai-jen Poo without saying that she was just named one of Time's 100 most influential people in the world. Because I'm not going to tell you that. What I'm going to tell you about Ai-jen is something that I learned from one of the many women whose life has been changed by the work that Ai-jen has done. Nearly 10 years ago, Barbara Young was a nanny from Barbados, sitting in a Manhattan park when a woman approached her with a Domestic Workers United flyer for a nanny training. She went, and along with lessons on how to improve her caregiving skills, Barbara learned that caregivers were excluded from the nation's most basic labor protections, the right to overtime, a minimum wage, and the right to organize. A concession to Southern lawmakers in 1930 intended to keep African Americans in servitude excluded domestic workers from the New Deal's Fair Labor Standards Act. Today, that little exclusion affects America's third fastest growing workforce. After the Domestic Workers United training, Barbara was personally empowered to negotiate her first ever contract with her employer and inspired to become an organizer herself, stuffing flyers into her diaper bag and bringing them to the park every day. Today, Barbara Young is the national organizer for the National Domestic Workers Alliance. And she happens to be here in the room. So Barbara, would you take a stand, please? So Barbara is by no means the only New York caregiver whose life Ai-jen has helped to transform. In 2010, New York passed the first ever Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, winning over, and some of you don't even know what it did yet, winning over 200,000 New Yorkers who previously had no protection, a guarantee of 3 paid sick days a year, time and a half overtime, a minimum of 1 day of rest per week, protection from discrimination and harassment, and inclusion of part-time workers in disability laws. And today, the great state of California is close to passing a similar law because of their efforts there. Though Ai-jen and the domestic workers' labor victories are ambitious, the astonishing truth to me is that Ai-jen has set her sights much, much higher. In a country where our political elites have always struggled to even acknowledge the basic worth of, much less the profound commonality with, immigrants and women of color, Ai-jen wants to show us that what unites us all is love. As Laura Flanders wrote in The Nation, Ai-jen showed this when East Side doormen got on buses to support the domestic workers in their buildings. And when workers' kids and employers rallied side by side with signs carrying signs that said, "Respect my mommy and respect my nanny." As Barbara Young told me, for Ai-jen, it is all about love. And she's led me to believe that with love, anything is possible. So please, join me in awarding Ai-jen for the love that she has shown us all through her dedication and her work, helping transform caregiving, transform labor organizing, and transforming America.
On behalf of domestic workers around the country, thank you so much to Demos and the American Prospect for this great honor, and to be introduced by Heather McGhee, who is one of my heroes. Can we give a shout out to Heather McGhee? She's amazing. A huge, huge honor. So as Heather said, in October of 2010, after more than 6 years of marches and long bus rides to Albany, alliance building and organizing on the part of thousands of domestic workers, the then governor of the state of New York, David A. Paterson, signed into law the very first Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights. But what you might not know is that more than a year earlier, in May of 2009, a feature was published in the American Prospect, written by a young journalist named Elisa Strauss, called The Invisible Workers. The article included stories and perspectives of women like Joycelyn Gill Campbell and Antonia Pena, both of whom work as nannies and as organizers. Their perspectives were depicted as women who had direct experience as vulnerable domestic workers, as well as women of vision, courage, and strategy. The article put our campaign, the Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights campaign, in the context of a long history of domestic worker organizing dating back to the 1881 African-American washerwomen's strike in Atlanta. And it profiled the innovative organizing of groups who are building our new national movement, groups like Mujeres Unidas y Activas in San Francisco, Casa de Maryland, and Domestic Workers United. The article was the kind of piece you cross your fingers and pray for when you invite a journalist to come spend the day with you, because it covered what matters most: the very human story of vulnerability, resilience, courage, and leadership. It was a piece with a lot of soul. Domestic workers are now helping to build a new national movement called Caring Across Generations, to bring together the millions of people who will need care in the coming years with the millions of workers who are charged with that care, to create jobs, opportunity, and a more caring economy for all of us. On Sunday, we will be holding our New York City Care Congress at Pace University, and you're all invited. Hundreds of New Yorkers will come together to share our stories and imagine the impossible once again. We're working to create real economic solutions in the midst of changing racial and generational demographics, in the midst of a jobs and budget crisis, and an increasingly polarized political environment. And as we do this work, what is clear that what is needed most is precisely what the American Prospect did for us in 2009. We need to tell the story of what's happening to people in this country, how they're organizing to change it, and foreshadow the victories that will address the scope and scale of suffering out there. And it must be done with soul. Some call it heart, some call it values, some call it love. Whatever you call it, it's what matters most. It's the element, yes, we should clap for love. It's the element that challenges us to go beyond the politically viable. It touches us deeper, allows us to imagine the impossible. And it fundamentally understands that hearts and minds are connected. So I am so thankful for Demos and the American Prospect, for the soul you bring to American politics. May you continue to produce your powerful research, policy, and journalism, and may all of us in this room continue to work together to bring in a new, soulful America that works for all of us, where everyone's humanity and dignity is valued. Thank you so much.